I ask you 15 minutes?
No. Thank you, Oscar, and good morning, everybody. It is just good morning, so I thank you very much for the invitation to speak here in Rome. I have spoken in Rome before, but never in a former monastery, so there's a first for everyone. Unfortunately, this is not the first time that I've been the last speaker. 10 days ago, I was speaking in Spain, and I was the closing speech on a 2-day conference. And you can imagine how much of my content was used over 2 days. So I have promised the panelists that I will try to be brief with this presentation, and I will skip over 1 or 2 slides with your permission. But you have heard some of the things that I am going to talk about, or was going to talk about. Just a geography lesson. This is Europe. This is where FEE is our member bodies, 45 institutes in 33 countries, including all 27 EU member states. And so we do go from Iceland in the west to Cyprus in the east. I've used this slide before, and 1 or 2 people in the room may have seen this before, but I think that this really brings into focus where we are today within the profession. We've heard about the Green Paper bringing in now the definition of international standards on auditing, saying that they are now IFAC standards, ISAs, which is a good development. So the implementation of ISAs is particularly important for the profession. But a couple of weeks ago, there was a second reading in Parliament in Brussels on the financial reporting for micros. So that is gathering pace. Assurance services other than audit in the Green Paper, let's call it the White Paper, we got the concept of limited review being brought in within member states, and we've had changes in ethics and development of other services. You've heard about the strengthening of public oversight, and I'll touch on that a little bit. And I'm going to bring in the revision of the 4th and 7th directives, which came upon us about 3 weeks ago, and because that is important in the context of audit. So with all those things going on, including developments in corporate governance, sitting in the middle of all that is the impact of the Green Paper. And so although Goran did mention that it was the pace of change that is concerning SMPs, there is certainly a large amount of change going on at the same time. So let's just look at the 4th and 7th directive. It was issued about 3 weeks ago. It was designed for simplification, and it is looking to reduce the cost for small undertakings. It's looking for increased harmonization and comparability across Europe, and the Think Small First approach has been adopted. What the European Commission have done with the revision to the 4th and 7th directive is used a series of building blocks, and started with the smaller companies, and then when you get to medium-sized, there's more requirements, and when you get to large, there's more requirements, which is different to some of the way that regulation has been developed in the past. And so we do have the Think Small First principle in the 4th and 7th directives. And this is going to be a new directive to substitute both those 2 directives. And the principle of materiality comes in really for the first time. And with regard to disclosures, there will be no requirement to disclose if it is considered that it's not material to the financial statements, which I think is another good development. However, one of the shortcomings, I think, with regard to this new directive is that they have put in quite substantial obstacles for the adoption of IFRS for SMEs. I know not all member states agree with the adoption of IFRS for SMEs. Some are going that route and others have decided not to. But they put forward two reasons for that, and that's the presentation of unpaid subscribed share capital and the amortization periods for goodwill as the reasons they don't want to adopt those IFRS for SMEs. Now, I think there's a more political aspect to that, certainly given the criticism that has taken place since 2007 with regard to IFRS. I think this is a step too far as the politicians or certainly in the Commission are concerned. And there are definitions for what a small company is that is being proposed in this new directive, and you can't change those as a member state. And as a consequence, you can't ask for more disclosure by member state. It's prescribed in the directive. Therefore, with IFRS for SMEs, if you do want to use that, you will not be able to disclose matters that are required within IFRS for SMEs because it's prohibited by the directive. So that is a massive obstacle as far as the adoption of those particular standards. Philippe mentioned the size criteria. They're on that slide. I'm sure the slides will be available. It is in relation to inflation from 2006 that they've been increased in this way. But this not only forms the basis for accounting and the description of small, medium and large within the new directive, it also flows into the thresholds for audit. Interestingly, within the accounting directive, it does actually state that there is no audit required for small entities at EU level. So basically what they've said is it's up to member states to decide whether they want to have an audit within their jurisdiction for the smaller entities.